The deadly COVID-19 pandemic has affected plastic recycling and our dream of curbing the plastic menace. Now, right from Wuhan to India, the demand for plastic items, especially during the health crisis, which constitutes face shields, gloves, PPE kits, and much more, has surged. Now, to understand how much this pandemic has contributed to this hazard in a world which is already choking with plastic, we're in conversation with Mr. Nityanand Jayaraman, who's a renowned environmentalist and a social activist. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time and speaking to me. I would like to begin by asking how significantly has the pandemic affected our limited efforts to eradicate the plastic menace?
I think that I don't have a figure on whether the quantum of plastic waste generated has increased during the lockdown.
Right.
My suspicion is that it would not have increased and would have actually reduced because the economy as a whole was down and purchasing was down. And if people don't buy, there is less plastic trash to be made. That said, a very large volume of a new stream of plastic waste, that is primarily personal protective equipment,
Yes.
masks, have made an entry. And these are mostly polyester, unwoven plastics that have made an entry. And the big problem with this is medical waste. It is contaminated waste. So it's not as if it can just be thrown somewhere and somebody's going to pick it up and send
Yes.
it for a reprocessing.
Absolutely.
That waste stream has increased. And because that waste stream, and also this is a very vulnerable area because it is difficult to not have personal protective equipment. So it is not like your single use carry bag,
Yes.
which we need to do away with. Over here, you're stuck in a even bigger dilemma than that you usually have
Right.
with regard to plastics. And I think that going forward, we need to really think very seriously about this. But it is true that we are already kind of choking in plastic
Yes.
waste, and we need to figure out a way of withdrawing and moving back from it before it kills
Absolutely.
us.
Absolutely. So let's go back in time a little. I remember in the month of March and April, a lot of us took to social media platforms to share images of clean rivers, mountains, and roads with no plastic waste at all. But now these resources are again polluted with plastic, and if not plastic, then other forms of waste. So where do you think did we go wrong, and what are the lessons that we can draw from the pandemic?
Well, I mean, the lesson that you can draw from the pandemic is that the design of your economic system is wrong.
Right.
When the economy is not doing well, the planet breathes easy.
Yes.
If the economy, quote unquote, does well, then the planet is screwed.
Yes.
So, which means that we have an economic system that is anti life. It is exploitative of people and it is exploitative of humans. So, you're not going to be able to recycle your way or solarize your way or put green energy to change things. You need to change your economic system. You need
Absolutely.
to make the economic systems in such a way that as the economic system flourishes and as people have better quality of life, the environment also is happy and does not suffer. If you can
Absolutely.
crack that, then we have it made because we constantly keep talking about a balance between economy and
Yes.
environment.
Yes.
Environment will not do any balancing. It will set the parameters for you.
Right.
If you operate within it, you will live. If you violate it, you will die or you will suffer. What the designers of our economy are saying is that the capitalist economy will do you good. Of course, there will be some harm. And so let's balance that. There is no balancing being done because what happens is the benefits that we take for granted, like electricity, air travel, fast cars, all these things come at a price. We don't pay that
Yes.
price.
Yes.
Somebody else does with poor air quality. Somebody else does with poor degraded land where there's a coal mine or a coal fired power plant. So these are all hidden costs. They're hidden not because we can't see it, but because
Mm.
we refuse to see it. And usually the places that these costs are sent to are
Yes.
places that are invisible on our radar. It is not where the rulers live. It is not where you and I live. Our garbage, our trash, and the costs of our lifestyle will be in places that are not visible to us. And the people who suffer from it will also not be visible to us because they're not people like you and me. They probably will not speak English. They probably will not live in a house like we do. But these are people from a completely different category of Indians
Right.
who have been historically oppressed. So this is the problem. The problem is our economy, is our economic model.
Absolutely. So if we take a look at the statistics, India has generated roughly about 18,000 tons of COVID-19 biomedical waste that you termed as the new form of plastic during the pandemic. And this data was released by the Central Pollution Control Board. So if we look at these shocking figures, what is the future that we're looking at? And what have all the efforts that we've made so far gone to waste?
The 18,000 tons of plastic waste is a drop in the ocean of plastic waste.
Okay.
I'm saying that even as we're talking about plastic waste, we have industries like Reliance that are ramping up the production capacity to produce more plastics.
Right.
We have a government that is providing them with the incentives to the polyester industry, to the
Right.
polypropylene industry, to the PVC industry to make more plastics. No amount
Right.
of Swachh Bharating will help us clean up. If we don't turn off the tap is on. The bathtub is overflowing. You can't be taking the mug to the bathtub and trying to empty it.
Right.
You have to turn the tap off.
Absolutely, sir. So, talking about hospitals, because that is one place where there's a lot of plastic production considering the health crisis, what role does these places play to curb this menace? And what are the measures that they can take?
So hospitals are the place that I will not start at. In fact, there are lots of things that hospitals can do,
Right.
and there are many, many models of that. But as I'm saying that I don't want to replace the IV bag and the blood bag as my first intervention.
Right.
In a country where even your single-use carry bag has not been banned,
Yes.
or the ban has not been effectively enforced, I will not talk about hospitals. If I so I do not like what plastic does after we use it. But plastic is a convenience. All of us use it. All of us are addicted to it. That is
Right.
bad. I would
Right.
like to get rid of that addiction. And so if I were to try to move towards getting rid of that addiction, first I have to admit that I'm addicted to a bad thing. Then I have to say, I'm going to take care of it by phasing it out. No bans. I'm talking about phasing it out.
Yes. Yes.
When you phase out something, you have time to put in systems to make sure that people don't suffer. Because this nasty, poisonous, harmful thing called plastics also has livelihoods attached to it. I'm not talking about the livelihood of Reliance. I'm talking about the livelihood of ordinary people who
Yes.
might have set up a small plastics unit because the government of India said, here's a loan, please set it up.
Right.
I don't want to hurt them. I mean, my actions need to ensure that they are taken care of too, which means that you say, okay, fine, you want 5 years? Let's figure out a way by which these industries can be used to manufacture other things, probably the alternatives to plastics.
Right.
The people engaged in it are manufacturing healthy things. We call them sunrise industries. Plastics should be a sunset industry, which means its time is over. And we would like to ensure that it has a decent burial. And we would like to have a sunrise industry, which is an industry that makes material that can be reused safely, it can be disposed safely, it can be composted safely, or it can be burned safely or buried safely. If it has any of these things, then I think it's a good product. With plastics,
Absolutely.
you can't burn it, you can't bury it, you can't recycle it safely, you cannot reprocess it safely, you can't throw it. So it's a problem. We have to get rid of it. We have to get rid of it in terms of designing out of plastics into other material that can do things and other practices that we can bring in.
Very true. When we talk about measures taken by the government or various other institutions, the Central Pollution Control Board has developed an application called the COVID-19 Biomedical Waste Management. How effective do you think an application can be in tackling this problem?
Your government's policies are messed up. Your government is doing nothing to turn the tap off. If Reliance keeps producing millions of tons of plastic, how the hell is an application going to help?
Exactly.
Zero use. It might have some cosmetic value to keep some Central Pollution Control Board engineers employed.
Right.
This is a matter of policy.
Right.
I mean, here you have the industry continues to insult by producing million tons after million tons of plastics, all of which will become waste within 6 to 8 months. And here we're talking about doing Swachh Bharat by picking up plastic carry bags from the beach by a bunch of school children. That's not going to do it.
Right. So once the COVID pandemic goes away, and once we're done with this health crisis, what are the immediate measures that we're looking at that we can actually implement and that can fetch us good results in the future, be it by the government or any institution?
Well, I think that the first thing that we should be looking at is to see whether India really wants to continue to expand this fossil fuel intensive, unmanageable waste producing problem called plastics.
Right.
Which means, do you want to continue to encourage industries to make this? Or do we want to step back and say, okay, let's slow down, no further expansion of plastic industries. What we have is what we have. Now let's figure out how to slow down this thing and start making less and less. Every year we will make less of plastic.
Yes.
And we have a 10-year goal, by which time we would have taken away all the non-essential, non-priority uses. Non-priority uses, you can start with your simple plastic carry bag. You can do away with packaging of
Yes.
styrofoam or polystyrene, that white thermocol packaging that you get in all these, Amazon and Walmart and Flipkart and other mail order businesses. The fast moving consumer goods like refrigerators and other things and computers. All these electronic items come packaged in plastic. So packaging is another thing where we have alternatives ready at hand, which are labor intensive, which are nature intensive, which are reusable, they are renewable. So if you're looking at cardboard and things like that, yes, they come from plants, but plants can be grown. Fossil fuel is finite. And so you have ways by which you can minimize your waste, and cardboard can be reused and recycled.
Right.
In many countries in the north, they have moved away from styrofoam. They moved away from polystyrene. And the same companies that are supplying us with computers packed in plastic and bubble wrap are actually doing it differently in Germany. So we would like to have the dignity and self-respect to say we are as good as anybody else in the world and we deserve the same.
Absolutely.
Let's get rid of the packaging. Let's get rid of the single-use plastics. Let's put in place labor-intensive, work practices that help people manufacture this from a variety of natural material or lasting material.
Right. So in the recent past, we've seen a lot of individual efforts to get rid of the plastic waste. Do you think there have been any institutional efforts to get rid of this menace, if any?
None. There are no. Individual ways will probably make you feel a little good in your, good for your karma. You'll be born hopefully as a nice, well taken care of dog in your next birth. It's not going to do much to change the planet's fate. To change the planet's fate, as you rightly said, you have to have institutional and policy level changes.
Yes.
And we see that the government is not, the heart is not in it. The Tamil Nadu government, my state, announced a single use plastic ban in January of 2019, not been implemented.
Yes.
So even if they go as far as announcing the ban, they don't enforce it.
Right.
If you don't enforce it, people will not follow it. For the first month, they enforced it, and people complained for a week and joyfully started engaging in it.
Yes.
So you need a push from the government, an invitation. enabling so that there are new jobs created. We need jobs, but the jobs should be in manufacturing healthy things. We don't want jobs to be created in manufacturing guns and bombs or crop poisons like
Yes.
pesticides.
Yes.
We want healthy jobs.
So, as an environmentalist, is there a to-do list that you can suggest to the consumers of plastic? Like these are the things that we should be doing on a daily basis to get rid of this menace. Like you rightly pointed out, individual efforts do not really bring in a large difference, but they definitely contribute if a certain community or a larger group come together towards a particular cause. So, is there any list or any measures that we can adopt in our daily lifestyle?
So first, I'm not an environmentalist. I'm a social activist.
Right.
And the reason why I make this distinction is because environmentalism is often an elite bourgeois term. So in environmentalism, many people often mistake it for aesthetics. So a clean
Yes.
beach is not environmentalism. A clean beach can be aesthetics, where I clean up that beach, take the garbage, and dump it on some losers. That is not
Right.
environmentalism, that is discrimination.
Right.
And so, what we need is, even for environmental problems, the approach should be from a social justice point of view.
Yes.
From not just from a social justice point of view, also in terms of justice for other living organisms and for future generations. So that's the caveat. Second, in terms of a to-do list, I think first we should stop being consumers and begin, because our constitution does not recognize consumers. Our constitution of India recognizes citizens. Today is a constitution day. Are you a
Yes.
citizen?
Yes.
If you're a citizen, then you have to do what the constitution says. The constitution says protect the planet and ensure that all living beings have a hell of a good time in this India, beautiful country of ours. So then that's what you should be doing. So you need to form citizen groups. Those citizen groups might take a consumer activist angle, do it, whatever is your gig, but you need to be engaged in politics. As citizens, you need to bring in political change. How do you bring in political change? Getting into politics is just one way of it. But as citizens, you have to practice politics every day. You have to ask questions. You should not think
Yes.
anybody is so big and so huge, and you should not idolize anybody. You should be irreverent to everybody in a nice way and ask them questions, hold them accountable, tell them how, when we don't know how to handle the existing plastic waste, how can you think of lending money or allowing a large company to make much more plastics? You have to
Right.
you have to hold our politicians accountable to ensure that their policies don't harm future generations and other life forms and the poor in our country.
Absolutely. So while we do understand this pandemic has definitely affected our efforts to curb the plastic menace, and not just the pandemic, even before that, there is still hope that we will be able to save the planet before it gets too late. And I'd really like to thank you for taking out time and speaking to me. It was wonderful having a conversation with you.